Welcome back to our podcast with your host, Alexa.
And I'm Samantha, and we're here to light up your life.
Joining us today, we have a special guest, Moe Rock. Moe is the CEO of the Los Angeles Tribune. He was named the Maverick of Media by Forbes. He reshapes new brands with a background in production and investment. He is passionate about personal development and integrated that wisdom into his business and new book, The Moral Compass, endorsed by Dr. Joe Vitale. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have you.
Well, it's my pleasure. I want to thank you, Samantha, and I want to thank you, Alexa. Today, we're going to have a great time, I hope, and have fun and have a great conversation for your awesome audience. And I want to start off by just saying, I know that the two of you put this entire program together to help be a North Star for people that don't have a North Star in their lives. And so what the two of you are doing is so important, and I'm so honored to be one of the guests. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you so much. That was so sweet of you to say. We love what you're doing as well. And just to give a little background to our audience, I actually saw Moe speak in Las Vegas at the Risk on 360 event, and that's where we connected. And I was really inspired by what he's doing, the work. And so, where did your love and passion come for your journalism and how you ultimately became the CEO of the Los Angeles Tribune? I think that's incredible.
Well, first of all, Samantha, thank you for attending that conference in Vegas alongside Robert Kennedy Jr., Tucker Carlson, and some other very well-known speakers. And the fact that you were there and that you showed up is a great lesson for the audience, right? Samantha lives on the East Coast. She went to Vegas to attend this conference. She showed up, right? And so there's a lesson in your question, and that's to show up. You can't, I've never met someone that's become successful by hanging out on their couch before. I have yet to find somebody that's made it by just chilling on their couch. So congratulations on showing up. And I know you made some awesome connections there. So my passion really, and this is of course the Los Angeles Tribune newspaper for folks that may not be familiar if you're living in a different part of the country or different part of the world. I recently gave a TED Talk, Samantha and Alexa. And when I was giving that TED Talk, I did a lot of research with my team. And what we discovered was that for every piece of positive news, every piece of news that might inspire or uplift you, there are at least 17 pieces of negative news. And so I think what we've all experienced in the last 3 or 4 years with all of the different things going on in the world is we've all experienced like a bombardment of negative news. And quite frankly, myself and my partners a few years ago, we're getting tired of that. And instead of sitting in the sidelines, we decided to do something about it. And so we decided to acquire this name that goes back in the history of the newspaper industry and do something different with it. Do something people haven't seen before, right? People are not used to a newspaper company focusing on empowerment and inspiration, focusing on the things that this podcast is all about. They've never seen it before. And so I'm excited because we're doing something new. We're doing something fresh. We're doing something different. And for example, this special thought leadership edition we have here, it focuses on news that uplifts and inspires, not news that is going to make you feel paralyzed about waking up, right? And how we frame things in our lives and how we frame things around the world are so important. I know you guys have had some guests that talk about psychology, NLP, things like that. The stories we tell ourselves define who we are, right? You can have two people born as twins in the exact same family with the exact same upbringing. One person ends up in prison. One person becomes CEO of a Fortune 500 company. They have the exact same ingredients in the pot, but the stories that they told themselves is what defined their destiny. And the same is true for the stories that we share with the world. If we start sharing stories about how horrible this planet is, we're going to see a reflection of that. And so the work that we're doing is to try to save this planet literally by focusing on a positive message when it comes to the news.
Wow, that was incredible. I love everything you stand for, and I think it's so important to have a positive outlook on life because, like you said, if you're constantly bombarded with a fear-based mindset, it paralyzes you and you don't know what to do, and it actually lowers your vibrational frequency, which we'll talk about, in your book later. But I think that's incredible what you're doing. It really is very commendable.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And again, Samantha and Alexa, what we've got to do is we've got to be the example of what we want on this planet, right? At some point, the two of you got together and said, we're going to start a podcast. We're actually going to do something together. You weren't just thinking about it and hoping that one day it would come into fruition. You took action. And anyone can change the world. In fact, every single time the world has changed, it happened because one person decided, right?
Mhm.
And so I want the folks that are listening to realize that they too can make a difference. The same way Samantha and Alexa are, the same way my team and I are. Everyone can make a difference and everyone can do something. And it doesn't matter how small a person thinks it is, because the Great Wall of China was built one brick at a time. You know what I mean? And so let's all get together. Let's all focus on what can we do in our lives to make a positive impact and not be afraid about, oh, well, who am I to make a difference? I think that holds so many people back, the whole who am I thing. And we got to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Everyone on this planet, in my opinion, is a blessing, is a miracle. I think we're all miracles. Listen, I didn't design myself. I don't know, I consider myself a pretty smart guy, but I didn't come up with all of the anatomy and biology of what I'm made of. And so we have something greater than all of us that has created us, that is guiding us. And I think we should all remind ourselves of that and follow that voice, follow that path, and know that we're all miracles walking on this earth.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And I know Forbes, we read in your bio, Forbes has named you Maverick of the Media. Yep.
Maverick of the Media.
Maverick of the Media. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What that must be such an honor. And what does that really mean to you?
Yeah, that was really awesome for some folks at Forbes to write that. And this past year, I was on the front page of entrepreneur.com. I was one of the headlining stories on Entrepreneur, which was another honor. And it's not even about me; it's about our company, our team, our vision, our mission, what we're doing, which is so exciting. But the term Maverick, I love the term Maverick because it's also aligned with the mission of our company. The whole focus of our company is to change the status quo. Those four words are so important in life. Change the status quo. If you are in business, regardless of what industry you're in, and you're not focusing on changing the status quo, why are you in business?
Mhm.
If you're gonna play big or don't play at all. If you're starting a company, change the status quo of that industry. Set that bar. Otherwise, go to the bar and just relax, right? And so, I love the word Maverick because it's all about changing the status quo, right? We started this interview talking about how at the Los Angeles Tribune, we're doing something new and innovative. We're changing the status quo. And I'm proud of that. And it pumps me up and it gets me excited. And when you guys ask me questions, look at my energy. I'm pumped up about it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's exciting to do something that actually changes the status quo. And so when I hear that word Maverick, that's what I think. And so the question for the folks listening is, are you changing the status quo of your industry? Do you even know what that would look like to change the status quo of the industry? If you don't, take time to actually think about it,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so change the status quo. That is the slogan of our company, because everything we do is all about that. Those four words, change the status quo. They're so important. That sentence is like really important to me, to our team. And I always reiterate that to all of our staff members and team. We're out here to change the status quo. We're not here to just be another company making some money. That's so boring. That is so boring. I'm not motivated by that. Listen, we'll make money, don't get me wrong, but we'll do it on our terms. We're going to do it without selling our soul. We're going to do it without acting like scumbags, right? So
Mhm.
that's, I believe that you can be successful and still be a person of integrity. And you don't have to be evil to make money or to become influential or become powerful. That's a facade, right? And so, You guys ask great questions. You guys get me pumped up in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah, and to your point, I think everyone in our audience should be asking really big questions. Why are you here? You know, what is your divine purpose? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Because it's not about us, right? It's about everyone that we can serve, and you're serving everyone on such a large level. So that's definitely why you are dubbed Maverick of Media. And we couldn't be more happy to know that you're doing that and you're influencing so many lives, especially on the West Coast, where there's a lot of misinformation that's coming out. So I also wanted to ask you, you know, as a journalist, and you mentioned this when you were speaking at the Risk on 360 event, you were saying that it's our job to put out the facts, right? And it's for the American people to make those decisions on what they think is true or false. And I find so many times there are certain channels on TV that are trying to brainwash our society into thinking one way. So I wanted to, you know, kind of get your opinion on all of that.
Sure, and I'll go there. But before I go there, you said something really awesome about knowing our purpose, right? Mark Twain said that the two most important days of your life, the day you're born and the day you find out why. And so it's really important for us to remember the words of Mark Twain on our journey as leaders, as entrepreneurs. Why are we here? Right? Because that's the most important question that anyone can ask us. And it's not, it's the answer is not why are we as a human civilization here, right? Because you'll go crazy. You'll end up like Nietzsche, or you'll end up going crazy asking those kind of questions. So the question that I tell people to ask is, why am I here? As long as we focus on our own lives, right, and doing good in our own lives in our own way, that's what makes sense to us. I think there are some things that we're not designed to even understand, right? If you look at history, the great statesmen, the great philosophers, the great leaders and teachers, they've asked some really deep questions, and a lot of them have gone mad. A lot of them end up going cuckoo, right? And so there are some things that honestly, I just believe we're not designed to understand, and I've come to terms with that. But what we can understand is, what are we doing with our lives? And that's where I like to keep our focus on is individually, what are we doing to help the collective? Now, as far as your question of the media, do you mean to tell me, Samantha, that the media has ever lied before, or ever shared any kind of misinformation? Because that's pretty incredible to think about. And the truth is, here's where that happened. If you look at the history of newspapers from the Gutenberg press to today, there was a time where things shifted. What really shifted the news industry, and there's a great movie called Network that is like a funny movie that kind of covers a lot of this, was when news became commercialized, right? When the phrase, if it bleeds, it leads, became something that television producers used, it shifted everything. Because then it no longer became about getting the facts to the people, it became about getting the eyeballs on the screen, right? And so today we live in a world where most newspaper companies, their objective is to come up with the sexiest headline, come up with the most controversial headline, come in and whether or not that headline does a service to humanity or a disservice to humanity is not even, they don't care. They just want to make as much quick money as humanly possible. And that's a damn shame, because what happens is it compromises the well-being of our species, right? And so again, yeah, at the conference, I had a great time at that conference, and I'm so glad you enjoyed my time on stage. And yeah, listen, you know what really bothers me, Samantha and Alexa, when people are condescending towards other people's intelligence. That really bothers me. I've always been the underdog, right? On paper, I'm not supposed to be where I am today, okay? And so along my journey, I had to deal with a lot of condescending people in my rise in corporate America, right? I'm usually younger. I usually look a little different, whatever the reasons are. So I don't like when the American people are dealing with condescending news agencies, because that's really what it comes back to, Samantha and Alexa, is there's a group of really powerful people that don't believe the American people, the general public, can handle the truth. You know, it's kind of like that Jack Nicholson quote from that movie. You know, you want the truth? You can't handle the truth. That's the attitude that a lot of these big media companies have with the general public. And I don't like that. I believe that everyone can handle the truth, should be told the truth, and let the people decide. And honestly, it's not even political. I don't care about what party, I'm not a party person. I'm a country person. I'm a humanity person, right? And so it's not even a political thing. I'm just speaking a general truism, you know, facts, truth. The fact that when I say that out loud, for some people it's controversial, is a testament to how far off we are today, right? Because all I said on stage at that conference was give the American people the facts. Why is that even controversial? But yet it is. And that's sad. It's really sad where we are today. So we have to all work together to get things in order.
Yeah, that was a great point. And so where do you see the media and journalism in the next 5 years if it continues the way it does, or, if people stand up and they want to make that change?
It's going to be in a fantastic place. It's going to be in a great place, because what we're doing at the Los Angeles Tribune is we're making it possible to let people know that, look, there are good media companies out here. And when I say good, that doesn't mean media companies that, are in alignment with your personal political beliefs. It means media companies that are focused on empowerment, inspiration, and truth for all. And so we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to expand. We're going to continue to have different verticals. There's a lot of exciting things we're announcing. Actually, not even last week, a few days ago, we announced the launch of our Women's Empowerment Network. We're doing it in partnership with a big company called JD3 TV out of Chicago. And so now we have an opportunity for leaders such as yourself, such as the two of you, that are women leaders focused on empowerment, right? Now you all have your own television network in our ecosystem. And so that's one little example. That's just one of several different verticals that we're doing to help make a difference. As an example, the pillar of that Women's Empowerment Network is inspiration, empowerment, women leaders, but freedom of speech. There's zero censorship on our network. Okay, you can say whatever you want to say. You're never gonna get none of the hosts of any of our television programs on this network are gonna get a call from me or my office saying, you should tone it down a little bit, or you should not talk about this person, or you should not. And by the way, that happens every day in media, but it's not gonna happen with us, right? And so again, we're just doing what we can do, and it's very exciting. So in 5 years, our women's television network, I believe, is going to be one of the biggest television networks when it comes to women's empowerment in the world. And that's why I'm like, we have some really cool and awesome things in the works. And I'm actually very optimistic. I think we've already seen the bottom, Samantha. Like we've seen the worst of the worst when it comes to media, and now we're going up. And so everyone listening, support the LA Tribune, support Samantha and Alexa, support podcasts like this. Put your energy with the good stuff, not with the bad stuff, with the empowering stuff, not with the negative stuff, right? Where your focus goes, the energy flows, right? We've all heard that before. So focus on the good. Don't stick your head in the sand, right? Don't be naive, but focus on the good.
Yeah, that is so important. What you're doing is so important. And I think there's so many times that I've heard other people say, well, I don't watch the news anymore. It's always negative. It's always the same story. And it brings me down, and I just don't turn on the news anymore, or things of that nature. And so I think so many Americans, to your point, are no longer listening to media. They are fed up with all the negativity that's coming at them, and they want to just remove themselves from it. So I think it's so important what you're doing. You're bringing positive things to light that are also important. Like you mentioned before, media outlets are chasing the sexy news, the controversial news. And so it's so important. I couldn't stress that enough, what you're doing today. So I also wanted to touch on the topic that you just mentioned, that you received a lot of criticism in your journey. And I know you're a big advocate for the self-help community. Can you tell us a little bit more about, what really helped you along your journey and creating this business?
Last night when I talked to Samantha for a couple of minutes, and right before we went live, when I got to talk to you, both of you shared why you do this podcast, right? And both of you shared, and I'm sure your audience has heard this, that both of you have learned a lot from mentors in your lives. Sometimes, by the way, mentors are people we know. Sometimes mentors are people that are not even alive. right? Like Napoleon Hill is a mentor of mine. He died before I was born. Okay, I've worked with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. We just did a program with the Napoleon Hill Institute. I'm a fan of that book, Think and Grow Rich. So when I'm in a position to support things that have supported me, I support them. I've supported the foundation, etc. So the point I'm making is, a lot of my mentors were my mentors, then later on became my friends and business partners. I was reading Dennis Waitley before I became his business partner, The Psychology of Winning. I watched The Secret, and a lot of those people in that documentary are now my friends. Joe Vitale wrote the foreword to my book. He speaks at all of my events. We've had many people that I used to look up to. Now they call me and they're my buddies. So again, sometimes in life, we just don't know where our journey will take us, but we have to listen to that whisper. And we have to realize that the evidence in our lives doesn't dictate the future. Okay? Sometimes we're in places and situations on our come up where we look to our left, we look to our right, we're like, I can never do that. Look at the evidence around me. That's an erroneous way of thinking. Mm-hmm. Never look at the evidence surrounding you. Always look at the evidence inside of you. Because there's evidence around us on the outside, but that's not going to dictate our future unless you let it. Sometimes the evidence is only inside. Sometimes people in our lives will not validate our dreams, will not validate the things we want to accomplish. Fuck them. Forget about them. Who gives a shit what anyone says, right? Critics are always going to, and sometimes the critics come from a good place. Sometimes the people that love us the most are our biggest critics, and that's okay. We don't hold it against them. We don't have to listen to them, right? We have to listen to our own voice, because ultimately this life is ours to live. And we can choose who we want to live it for. Are we living it selfishly? Are we living it for God? Are we living it for the betterment of this world? These are the questions to ask, And so I know we're getting a little deep, but I'm having a great time with the two of you.
No, I want to go back to the point and just reiterate, it's so important not to live by the memories of your past, but really seek that vision for your future and know that it is inside you. And I find a lot of times it's kind of like putting on prescription glasses, right? So you can see clearly with your own prescription, but if someone else put on your glasses, they're not going to be able to see your dreams and your goals and understand it the way you do. So I think it's so important to really value the vision that you see for yourself. And like you said, go after it, take action and take messy action. And so I know you said previously, a lot of these people you looked up to previously, and now they're your business partners, they're your friends. So how did you cultivate that relationship to go from, knowing about them, learning from them from afar, and then actually building a friendship?
Well, I never approached anyone like a fan. Okay. Even when I didn't have a reason to have a big self-esteem, I always had a good self-esteem. Okay. So I don't approach people like fans. I approach people respectfully. If I meet somebody, or if I, in my come up would ask for assistance from people, or I would always also have something to offer, right? I waited. I didn't, when I was reading these books and when I was watching these documentaries, I didn't reach out to them at that point, right? I waited until I was ready to actually offer something to them. And that takes years, and that takes time, and that takes blood, sweat, and tears, and that takes busting your ass for a while. You see what I'm saying? And so I was patient, right? So patience is really important on this journey of being an entrepreneur. We can't just snap our fingers and expect everything to happen tomorrow. But here's the interesting thing. Time goes by really damn quickly. And time will go by regardless of whether or not you're growing or not, right? 10 years goes by like this. You guys remember 10 years? We're in 2000. Listen, we're in 2024.
Wild. Yeah.
We're like in the future. My mind is still like 2010. I'm like, my God, where the hell did this 14 years go? But the point I'm making is we got to stay patient. We got to have grace with ourselves, right? Give ourselves grace on our journey. Sometimes we get frustrated. Things are not moving the way we want them to move. Give yourself grace, right? The world is going to be tough on your ass anyways. You might as well give yourself a little grace on your journey as an entrepreneur. And when you're in a position where you've garnered respect in the marketplace, other people that have also garnered that same respect are going to want to work with you, right? And so it's the law of attraction, right? When you get to a place in your life and in your business, you start attracting opportunities. And so you want to take the pathway of least resistance. You don't want to put yourself, you don't want to have your bark bigger than your bite and then get frustrated about it, right? Get, bark as loud as your bite is, and then just work on getting your bite bigger. And in a year or two, you're going to bark louder, and a couple years later, you're going to bark louder. And so again, patience is so important in life. Knowing where you're going is so important, and things will come into place and good things will happen. Dreams do come true. You just have to expect miracles.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You need to expect miracles. And I think going back to even what you said before, the stories that you tell yourself are so important. Every single day, like analyzing your thoughts, because they're vibrational frequency and you are attracting that back to you. And so I know that your book comes out this week, so congratulations. It's called The Moral Compass. We cannot wait to read it. And I know a lot of what you talk about and what we spoke about is you have, concepts of the universe, the law of attraction. And so for anyone listening to this, knowing those will help you in any aspect of business, whatever career path you're going on, whatever you want to build for yourself. So how did you use those universal principles to get you to where you are today?
So I'm really excited about this book, The Moral Compass. It's actually the first of a 6-book series that I'm writing.
No way.
Okay. And there are 5 more books that are coming after this. And the 5 books cover our lives and our businesses financially, spiritually, relationally, physically, and mentally, meaning peace of mind when I say mentally. And so the first book is called The Moral Compass because it's a foundation book before you read the other 5. And the Moral Compass is about integrity. Okay? Because it doesn't matter how successful you are financially. You could have a lot of money. If you don't live your life with integrity, you're a loser, in my opinion. I met a lot of people that have a lot of money, but they're actually bums. Okay? Because they don't have integrity and they don't do good things with their money and they're just scumbags. I met 1 or 2 people like that. If you have spirituality in your life, but you don't have integrity, also, I don't respect that, because a lot of times people in the spiritual community, they think that they're above other people, right? Or they look down on other human beings because of their spiritual beliefs. I don't respect that either, right? And so relationships are the art of a relationship is to empower the people in your life, not manipulate them. And so again, you can be very skilled in communication and you can understand the psychology of relationships, but if you don't have integrity, in my opinion, you're still a loser. Okay? And so to be a winner, you got to have integrity. And what does that mean? It doesn't just mean saying the truth. It actually means living your life in alignment with the betterment of humanity. And when you read the book, we get into that. And I've also invited a lot of experts to give commentary in the book as well. So we have behavior scientists, we have NCAA champions, we have people from all walks of life talking about integrity in the book as well. The foreword was written by my friend Joe Vitale, who was one of the stars of The Secret, who understands the law of attraction better than anyone. I've had great conversations with him about the law of attraction, and some really deep stuff that we've talked about over the years. And so when it comes to the law of attraction, the main thing that I'll have to boil it down to is it's about being what you want to be, right? You got to be that $1 million person before you can have your $1 million year. You got to be that incredible, loving human before you can have that loving relationship. And so a lot of times people forget that being part, and then they wonder why they're not having, right? And so you got to be, then you got to do, then you got to have. Those are the 3 elements of it. But if you're not working on the being part, the doing is only going to lead to frustration, because you're not going to get what you want to have, because you're not ready to do what you need to do to have what you want to have until you are the person you need to be. So going back to the internal, one of the 7 hermetic principles, as above, so below, as below, so without, as within, so without. And so how do we develop ourselves internally will ultimately result in the impact that we make externally. But most people, by the way, have never figured that part of life out. Most people walking around are focused on the external instead of focusing on the internal. And that's the distinction, I think, between the people that really build themselves into influential people that are making a positive impact versus those that never do.
I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. You attract who you are, not what you want, right? So it's so important to create the person that you want to be, and you will end up attracting exactly what you want into your life. And I love what you said about having this sort of mindset of creating the person you need to become. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. And I think embodiment is the biggest part. You know, you're embodying your vision and who you truly want to become, and have that integrity behind that. And so for our listeners, what is, one thing they would be able to do right away from your perspective that will help them get one step further to stepping into their power, raising their vibrational frequency, getting to where they truly and ultimately want to become?
Yeah, I mean, so that's such a great question. And I'm gonna give two answers. I'm gonna give the spiritual answer, then I'm gonna give the business answer. Okay.
Mhm.
Spiritually, get quiet. Turn off these damn phones, throw it in another room, right?
Mhm.
Eliminate distractions and just sit quietly and be, sit somewhere without distractions and just have a conversation with yourself and God. And people don't do that. People don't take time out of their day to just meditate or relax. I'm not really a quote unquote meditator, but I spend time alone and I just listen to what's going on inside, and I just do a check-in, and I speak to whatever that great mystery is by myself, right? And it's really important to do that in our lives, and we don't do that enough. So get rid of these damn phones for a while, okay?
Yeah.
Don't think about IG for an hour, right? And just relax. And instead of thinking about IG, spend some time thinking about the big G, right?
Oh,
That big G,
that
okay? And,
was
and let's have conversations with God instead of conversations with tech companies. How about that for a change?
yeah.
So that's number one. Two, from a business standpoint, if you're an entrepreneur, the most important thing for you to remember is ICE. Not this kind of ICE, okay? Influence, credibility, exposure. You need to have influence, credibility, and exposure in today's marketplace. Otherwise, you're going to be a dinosaur. Now, I don't know what the two of you, I don't know if the two of you have ever seen Jurassic Park or what the two of you know about dinosaurs,
Yeah.
but
We
but
do.
being in the dinosaur club is not a club you want to be in. Okay.
No.
And so let's not become dinosaurs. How do we
No
do
secrets
today?
here.
Exactly. Influence, credibility, exposure. What are you doing in your business to garner influence? What are you doing in your business to garner credibility? What are you doing to gain exposure? As long as you do something every day as an entrepreneur to take one step forward in one of those three things, you do it every single day, even if it's a small win. I did something today that gave me and my business a little more credibility. You know, I did something today that gave my business and I a little more exposure, a little more influence. You do that every single day. You look back, uh, over the course of the year, you have over 350 little wins.
Yes.
And it's important to celebrate the small wins along the way.
It's so important to celebrate the small wins because all the big wins happen because of the compound effect of the small wins,
Right.
right? And so again, we have to just focus on the small wins of the day, and it'll all compound over time. And so those are the two things I'll say from a spiritual peace of mind place, but also from a practical place. Are you getting yourselves in newspapers? Are you getting yourselves on stages? Are you writing a book? Are you part of things that are going to give you influence, credibility, and exposure? And we can actually help entrepreneurs and speakers with a lot of that, right? We have ways to assist people that usually are not able to get in newspapers. They have no idea where to even start. right? And so influence, credibility, and exposure. Those are three things. You got to have some ice in your life.
Yeah. That's a great point. I've never heard of ICE before, but I think it's really imperative. And to go back to what we were talking about, I think the small wins are so important because then it gives you that momentum to reach your larger goals. And I find so many times people want this extravagant, large goal, and they're not even giving themselves grace. They're not taking it day by day. Everyone wants this instant gratification, like, social media provides us. So it is really, and we talked about this on the podcast before, it's like planting a seed, and you're not going to dig it up every 2 to 3 hours to see how much it's grown. Over time it will gain that momentum if you're doing those small wins every day. So I couldn't stress that enough. That was a really great point.
Yeah, and we talked about it even for the podcast. It's important to remember your why, kind of the vision of why you're doing this. What is your ultimate kind of holistic goal? But then it's important to kind of plan those things. And what are some low hanging fruit? What are some more achievable goals? How am I going to build up to that? And so goal planning is such an important thing, and something that we actually do every year in the beginning of the year. What do we want to accomplish this year? What is our why? And how are we going to drive to get there?
That's awesome. No, totally. The two of you are on track, and I'm so honored to be on this podcast. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see the two of you continue to blossom and grow. And I'm going to have a front row seat to the incredible things that this podcast is doing. And I'm so pumped up and excited to be one of the guests on this awesome program. And absolutely, every day, do something that'll listen, give yourself grace. Don't stress out about the progress. Your responsibility is to do something small every single day. And I only use the word small because our minds are kind of funny. Sometimes we actually do big things, but we think it's small, right? Sometimes a phone call seems small, but it's actually a big thing. Grab the damn phone, make that call, make an extra call a day. Do something every day. As long as I do something every day to move my business forward, I sleep at night well. Okay? Because I'm like, you know what? I did something. Maybe that something only took me 30 minutes. Maybe it took me 10 hours. It depends on what that thing is, but I'll do something every day. I'm like, okay, this email I sent is going to move my business forward. This podcast that I'm doing with the two of you, I count this as something that's moving my business forward. This counts. Okay? And so, we got to always give ourselves grace. Be very careful with who you associate with. Be very careful with your friends that you choose. Be very careful with the mentors that you choose. Be very careful about avoiding shiny object syndrome. If you have a fucking goal, stick to that goal. Don't go from one thing to another. Like, I know people that are entrepreneurs, and every like 5 or 6 months I'll see them somewhere, and they're doing something different every damn time I see them.
Yeah.
Right? So, you were selling life insurance a couple years ago. Now you're kind of dabbling in real estate. Weren't you the same person that was trying to sell me an NFT in 2021? What happened to that? What happened to all those people that bought those cats? Did their investment work out for them? So again, I'm so damn picky with who I do business with, who I associate with. There's a lot of people on this planet that are completely full of shit. Avoid those people.
You're right.
Develop the intuition to know who those people are. That's your responsibility.
Yeah. And I think the more that you go inward and the more time you meditate or you sit with yourself and you have those conversations with God, you ultimately can meet someone and just feel their energy and know that there's something off. And it does help with your intuition and being able to decipher who should be in your life. So I also wanted to ask you quickly, is the concept of letting go, was that hard for you, knowing that it's going to happen for you regardless and not putting so much resistance towards, things in your life that you want to come to fruition?
It's not letting go. It's accepting that there's something that I'm supposed to do and I don't always know what it looks like. Okay? Like, if you asked me 10 years ago, I would not have told you that I'm going to own and run a newspaper company. That was not part of my plan. Okay. But now that it came into fruition, I'm like, oh, okay, all my experience in life totally makes sense. I understand God, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
But at the time, it didn't look like I would not have planned this out, specifically the details. So we got to accept, like, sometimes, for example, someone may believe that their purpose in life is to be a best-selling author. Maybe their purpose in life is to own a publishing company. Maybe their purpose in life is to, you know, do something that sort of has something to do with what they initially thought, but it doesn't look the way that they think it's going to look. And so letting go of the attachment of what exactly it looks like, yeah, we don't have time to be attached to that, because then we'll get stuck. Okay.
Yeah.
We have to accept the journey. Like, okay, I'm here to do something great. I'm here to do something impactful. I'm here to do something important with my life to make the world a better place. And I'm not attached to what that looks like.
Mhm. Letting go of the outcome.
People get too attached to the identity of it, the
Mhm.
titles of it. All the titles on this planet are all bogus. Human beings make all that shit up, right? Somebody
Yeah.
sat around and came up with this term CEO, right? And now people are like, oh, I want to be CEO. It's a man-made thing. The real thing is for us to be a human being that's doing positive work. That's real, right? There's a lot of illusions and stuff that most people don't see. There's this movie called They Live, where people put on the glasses and they start seeing a lot of things that they didn't see before. I encourage folks to watch that movie, They Live, because it's
Okay.
very interesting. It's kind of a mind-bending sci-fi movie, but it's interesting and it'll make you think. And here's the interesting thing about that movie, They Live. When it was released, it was the #1 movie in America in the early 90s. The second week that it was in the movie theaters, it was the #1 movie in America. The third week, you couldn't find it anywhere.
Hmm.
Only time in history that a #1 movie just completely disappeared. And so, why? I don't know. Watch the documentary. There's some interesting things about it, about propaganda, about how the media works, about how people in the media operate. It's a fun sci-fi movie. Take it with a grain of salt, but it'll make you think.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to check that out. That's amazing. Wow, this has been such a great podcast episode. Everything that you talked about was so inspiring and you added so much value to your audience. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And so for our listeners, where can they find you? You have a website, Instagram, YouTube.
So follow me on Instagram. Just remember, Moe Rock loves you. Okay. Just remember, just like my Instagram handle, I love you. So go to Moe Rock loves you on IG. And I'm pretty good with following most people back. So whenever this podcast comes out, you follow me, I'll follow you back.
Love that. Well, thank you so much. And we hope you have an amazing day. And we're sending our listeners, as always, so much love and light.